illusion of moral strength.
There's a quiet tragedy in trying to be good. You grow up hearing that being nice is enough, that if you're polite, respectful, and avoid conflict, the world will reward you with peace. But there's a moment, often subtle, often late, when you realize this peace is a leash, when your politeness becomes paralysis, when your approval-seeking becomes a form of self-erasure. Niccolo Machiavelli never defined virtue as purity. He defined it as action, sharp, calculated, unflinching, even under pressure. In his world, a good man who couldn't act decisively in chaos wasn't virtuous. He was expendable. Marcus Aurelius echoed something deeper. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Yet that line isn't a motivational slogan. It's a warning, because most modern men don't be good. They perform goodness. They mimic whatever trait gets the most praise, whichever posture avoids confrontation. But approval isn't the same as respect. Being liked is not the same as being trusted. And today many men are trained, systemically, culturally, emotionally, to confuse the two, to think that submission is kindness, that silence is maturity, that people-pleasing is peace. So here's the question that starts it all. If your goodness is based on fear, is it really good at all? The trap of being liked. There's a quiet desperation in the man who always says yes. You've seen him. Maybe you've been him. He smiles when he wants to scream, nods when he wants to walk away. He compliments when he disagrees, not out of love, but out of fear. He has made a silent trade, his truth in exchange for temporary harmony. And this trade, repeated over years, hollows him. Men today don't fear death as much as they fear rejection. Not being disliked, being excluded, not being wrong, being alone. So they perform goodness, like a well-trained actor who never forgets his lines. They offer softness where a boundary was needed. They offer silence where their soul was burning to speak. And slowly, they disappear into their performance. This isn't kindness. This is self-erasure. It's a man slowly sanding down his edges to fit into a mold that was never meant for him. He becomes agreeable, but invisible, peaceful, but powerless. Machiavelli saw this coming centuries ago. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But this wasn't a call for tyranny. It was a reflection of something darker, that love without strength invites abuse, that kindness without edge attracts those who will test your silence. And if you can't protect your own line, someone else will walk past it. You weren't made to be agreeable. You were made to be grounded. Grounded in something so solid, so real, that it doesn't tremble every time the room shifts. And most men today have never touched that version of themselves. They don't even know where he lives, because to find him, you have to stop trying to be liked. Niceness is often strategic weakness. Kindness for many men is not a natural expression. It's a shield, a calculation, a strategy. From early on, boys are taught that being kind wins safety. Be polite, you won't be punished. Be soft, you won't be rejected. Be accommodating, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be accepted. This isn't morality, it's survival. And survival has a cost. The erosion of raw instinct. That instinct, the one that wants to challenge, to protect, to claim space, is buried under years of conditioning. So now when a man is nice, it's often not because he is good, but because he's afraid of what will happen if he isn't. He doesn't say no because he's empathetic. He says no because he dreads conflict. He doesn't avoid hard conversations because of compassion. He avoids them because they threaten the fragile image he's built. That's not strength. That's submission, masquerading as virtue. Machiavelli understood this mask. In a world governed by power, visible and invisible, a man who lacks edge becomes a target because people sense when your kindness is real and when it's compensation. When your goodness flows from strength, it commands respect. But when it flows from fear, it breeds exploitation. And this is where most men break. They've mistaken their quiet compliance for virtue, but it's not. It's repressed fear, dressed in the language of modern ethics. Their silence doesn't come from inner peace. It comes from years of not knowing how to speak without shaking. You think your niceness makes you good, but sometimes your niceness is the very thing keeping you small. When morality becomes manipulation, there's a kind of goodness that isn't good at all. It looks like virtue. It speaks like humility, but underneath, it's something else entirely: control. Many men adopt a moral posture, not because they've earned clarity through inner struggle, mas porque é conveniente, because being good keeps them comfortable, keeps them liked, keeps them in the clear. But what if this so-called goodness is a disguise? A way to avoid confrontation, a way to be seen as noble without ever stepping into risk. You smile when you want to scream. You nod when your soul says no. You say it's okay just to avoid the discomfort of naming your own truth. This isn't compassion, it's avoidance with a halo. This is what Machiavelli would mock, not because he was cruel, but because he was honest. He understood human nature without sugarcoating it. He knew that in politics, in power, and in personal life, the man who hides behind fake virtue becomes a pawn in games he doesn't even know he's playing. That's why manipulation thrives in the moral language. Because nobody questions a man who means well. Nobody sees the passivity beneath the performance. And slowly, subtly, the moral mask becomes a prison. One that you built brick by brick, thinking you were doing the right thing. Authentic morality isn't soft. It's sharp. It sees clearly, speaks honestly, and risks rejection if necessary. It doesn't beg to be liked. It demands to be respected. And that kind of integrity is terrifying, because it means letting go of the image you've worked so hard to polish. But if your so-called goodness requires you to shrink, to hide, to lie, then it isn't goodness. It's strategy. And strategies, no matter how noble they sound, are not soul. A practice to restore inner sovereignty, to reclaim your edge. You don't need a new philosophy. You need a confrontation, not with the world, but with your own silence. Sovereignty doesn't begin in loud declarations or public defiance. It begins in the private, raw moments when you stop lying to yourself. For the next 7 days, speak one hard truth per day. Not to hurt, not to shock, but to train your nervous system to stop flinching. Say what you've avoided. Name what makes your voice tremble. Look someone in the eye and speak what your body has been suppressing for years. The point isn't to be provocative. The point is to feel the resistance, that internal tension that rises when you're about to be real. That's your fear leaving the body. That's your identity reforming. After each moment, write. Not to impress, not to post, but to expose. Write what happened in your body. Did your throat close? Did your hands shake? Did you feel lighter, or did shame flood in? That reaction is the map to your real self. The one you buried under being nice, under keeping peace, under pretending. And when it feels like too much, when your brain whispers that you're being too harsh, too blunt, too much, remember this. You've spent years filtering your truth to be palatable. This isn't cruelty. This is recalibration. Sovereignty begins where performance ends, not with noise, but with stillness, not with dominance, but with unapologetic clarity. The world doesn't need another agreeable man. It needs one who doesn't flinch when the truth stands up in his throat. Machiavelli wasn't evil. He was honest. Niccolo Machiavelli didn't write for the fragile. He didn't romanticize power, nor did he worship cruelty. He simply told the truth most fear to say out loud. The world runs on perception, not purity. On leverage, not longing. On clarity of will, not on the applause of the crowd. He saw virtue not as something ornamental, but functional, a trait defined by its effectiveness under pressure, not by its conformity to ideals. And in that brutal honesty, he offered something most philosophies hide from: permission to stop pretending. Robert Greene would later echo him, reminding us that power isn't just about how strong you are, it's about how invisible your strength is, until someone tries to test it. Real power is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission, and it never waits for validation. You don't become strong by being good. You become strong by being honest, especially when honesty costs you comfort. connection, or reputation. The man who fears judgment can never lead himself. He'll always wait to be told who he is. And in a world where appearance is everything, where being liked is currency and approval is oxygen, real virtue is rebellion, not the loud, reckless kind, but the silent, immovable kind, the kind that says, I will speak the truth even when my voice shakes. I will be who I am, even if no one claps. I will stand where others bend, not because it's easy, but because it's mine. Machiavelli wasn't evil. He was a mirror, and most can't stand their own reflection.